Good morning, everybody, including Shane's hat, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 382, recorded live Wednesday, March 28th, 2018. I am your host, Todd Clint. If you are lonely, you can reach out to me online at Todd Clint on Twitter, todd@toddclint.com. I very rarely email myself, so, any number of ways. But I'm not the only one here. I don't know which side you've got me on this week, so wherever you're at, Shane, introduce yourself. Tell the folks how to get a hold of you.
To your right, stage right for you. Or is that stage left? I don't know. Yep, there you go. Hi, my name is Shane Young, and I am wearing this beautiful Microsoft Flow hat because the Flow team loves me more than the PowerApps team. They sent me swag, so there it is. A tip of the cap, the Microsoft Flow hat to the Flow team.
Yes, and so Flow has been quietly in the background, gaining some steam. Yeah,
I know.
I like Flow.
I mean, they got hats, they got T-shirts. I mean, they're ballers these days. So,
Flow team, hook me up. I would wear a Flow T-shirt. I would proudly wear a Flow T-shirt.
I got red marks on my head from wearing that hat too small. So you can hit me up if you want to talk about Flow. I'm not ready to have that conversation. I want to talk about PowerApps though. Hit me up on Twitter at Shane's Cows. You know where to find me. You know where to love me. So.
For our production notes, so I know I just got last week's podcast out here about 30 minutes ago, but I've talked to some people about it, and the overwhelming question that I hear is, has your house burned down yet? How is the new oven?
I am happy to report that since you see me standing in my house, it has not burned down. No small section, no fires whatsoever have been involved. Now, I will tell you, though, that this fancy new stove is like a beginner's guide to fancy stoves. So there's like 712 questions it wants to ask you before it turns on. It wants me to have an experience. I'm like, I don't want an experience. I just want to turn on the oven. So.
Yep. I'm envisioning now like a child's toy, my first fancy stove. So Shane was talking to me about it, and what he means is, it's not like the old days where when you wanted to bake something at 450, you switched to 450 and you were done. Now it's these questions, what do you want to do? Press 6 for this, press, 9 for that, whatever. And he was lamenting about that. And I hadn't realized all of my appliances are like that too. Like for me to defrost a pound of hamburger for Hamburger Helper in my microwave is like a 14-step process. And I need to figure that into the time. It takes so long to make Hamburger Helper. It takes so long to defrost hamburger for Hamburger Helper. It takes so long to convince the microwave to defrost the hamburger. I mean, yeah, it's all, yeah. Now, I had not even noticed it.
Now, I will give our friends at KitchenAid one little piece of this, though. So it is the Idiot's Guide to Stoves, right? It's how are you doing today? Is the sun out? All the fun things. But one of the things it does do is when you do finally get it started, is that up in the corner, it puts the time that you started it. Like it just, it says you started at 5:54. So if you happen to forget to set the timer because you're tired of answering questions on your stove, if you can do math, you can figure out at 5:57, it's been on for 3 minutes. So that idiot feature is a stellar one. The other 74, not so much.
Yeah, and I think I have KitchenAid appliances, so I think that's why our experience is the same. I will say for the timer part, I always use she who shall not be named, and I'll be like, yo, she who shall not be named, set a Hamburger Helper timer for 14 minutes or whatever.
There you go.
So house hasn't burned down yet. So in other good news at your house, you've got a new mic set up?
Yep. So I went ahead. I had not realized it, but apparently, when I type and stuff, in the background there, you could hear it typing. And so kind of putting the whole story together, maybe backing up a step, what it was when I was doing the recordings and such and doing the typing, I would not, I'd play them back over my speakers, my little audio, $5 PC USB speakers. Never heard the clinky. I was like, oh man, this recording's perfect. Been putting those things out. So then I decided after Todd's whining, I listened to one of my shows with my fancy, $500 headphones. I don't know why I have $500 headphones because they're not worth it. But because they're so tuned into all the little sounds in the background and it's right there in my ear holes, I could hear the typing. So that moment, I went to Amazon and I just ordered a wall mount for my boom arm. So then that way it's mounted against the wall. So if I tap on the wall, you probably hear that. But hopefully the clinkety clinky of typing, for those of you using fancy $500 headphones, will no longer be an issue.
Yeah. There are many things to complain about to you, so I wasn't going to complain about the typing, but that's good that you did that. For me, and I don't know how bad my typing comes through. I have my mic. I don't have a wall to mount anything near. I have my microphone sitting on several paperback books to protect the sound from coming up. I don't know how well that works, but so that's good.
Yeah, and I think part of my problem though is like, 'cause I switched to standing desk, right? And so while it's stable, it moves a little bit, but the mic was clipped to the desk because that way it moved up and down when I moved the desk up and down.
Seems logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, it's over there now. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Because if it works, and maybe I probably should move my camera because you can't really tell. But when I type, you can probably see it now, right? There's just a little bitty tremble. So in a perfect world, I probably need to get the camera mounted over there also. I'm spending more money, Todd.
But you got to spend money to make money.
Making it rain. Where's my quarters?
All right. So I have made some changes too. So last week, Shane lost his power. His computer went down. He and I had discussed how there's these things called battery backups or UPSs that would mitigate that. And I told him how I had some. And then a couple of funny things happened. So one thing, Shane and I, a few months ago when we were talking about mining for cryptocurrency and how much electricity that would take and all that, I put a Wemo smart plug and I hooked my computer up to it because then it would tell me how much energy the computer was using and I could kind of get a baseline for all that kind of stuff. It just, again, the kind of discussions that Shane and I have. And so then that showed up in my Wemo app and I named it after the machine. The name of this machine is Podcaster. Easy enough. And then I could go through, I could look at the thing. So I also have some lights that I have programmed to come on for the podcast. And so it's this light over here and a couple of other things. And that device is called Podcast Lights. So last week, it's like karma was really out to get me. I made fun of Shane because of his computer shutting off because he didn't have a UPS and I've got a UPS on mine. And then when I went into the Wemo app to shut off my podcast lights, my eyes saw podcast. I hit off and I killed the power to my desktop with my Wemo switch and plenty of lights so I could see what was going on. And then a couple of days later, I was over at my desk behind that jiggling some cables for some other stuff. And so I had like an extension cord and then the Wemo thing and then the cord for my computer. And I jiggled right where the little Wemo thing and it killed the power on my desktop again. So I no longer have that Wemo. I may have thrown it against the wall. I can't remember where it went. But it is not in line with my computer anymore.
This was very satisfying to a guy who just received a lecture on UPSs and how they would have saved the world. Twice Todd had to tell me, yep, I took my computer off on accident. It's like, yeah. Happy dance.
Yep. But happy notes for production notes, all caught up until now, obviously. But it's all good. So let's hit some topics, Mr. Young. Let's actually talk about what the folks are here to hear about.
I like this free running talking.
I do too.
Well, I think you had a great idea before the show started, right? I'm hijacking you getting the topics. This is the first. But you talked about maybe this is our Patreon thing. Maybe once a week we record a show for the Patreon listeners. It's just a half hour of me and you. It's just a recording of whatever it is we randomly talk about. Because some days we talk about tech stuff. Some days we talk about stock market stuff. Some days we talk about cryptocurrency stuff, which is really bad. I'm surprised you haven't yelled at me about that lately. But we have these just random grammar conversations that maybe really bored people would want to listen to. I don't know.
I think people probably think, man, these guys are idiots when it comes to Office 365 and PowerApps and Azure and all that. I think it would really open up a whole world for people to find out that we're idiots on so many more topics, that we know nothing about so many things, but that doesn't slow us down. I think that would be very empowering.
I think it would. All right, so back to topics. I'm sorry that I stopped you, but you opened the door and you took a breath. Remember last week when you refused to take a breath to let me sneak in? So I had to jump. I was like, here I am.
I get it. So the big news for SharePoint folks and for Office 365 folks is that hub sites are out now. And if you have an Office 365 tenant, you probably have hub sites now, whether you know it or not. I think that's all out for general release and targeted release and catch and release and early release and all the different things. I think that's out now. And so what is a hub site? So a hub site, first off, I have to shout out to Mark Cashman. He's on the team there at Microsoft, and he's been the one that's been tweeting all this and championing it, and very good stuff. And Mark's just an all-around good guy. So I wanted to give him a shout out. But hub sites are this new functionality inside of Office 365. So it's a SharePoint Online thing. And it lets you set a site collection as a hub site. And then you can associate other site collections to that. And then this is like your hub. So what do hubs get you? Why besides being able to grab onto a buzzword and run with it, it gives you a bunch of things that we have wanted in SharePoint Server for a long time. So once you have a hub site collection and all of its hub sites, they now have cross-site navigation. So they share navigation among these site collections, but they all maintain their own security. So you don't have to have subwebs and this idea that if, inheriting things is incorrect, that comes, you get cross-site navigation that you can control from the hub. Your look and feel, your branding is consistent. So your hub sites, the children, the childs, inherit the branding and the look from the hub site. So you change it in one spot, it goes down. Their search is now there's a scope for all of the sites in a hub, content roll up and all that. So it's all these great things. But again, the important part is it doesn't change permissions on anything. So you have these different site collections that maintain their permission, but then you've got this other thing. So it really is a good deal.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Now, I will say you oversold it a little bit in the fact that it's only targeted release. They're not. They haven't gotten past targeted release yet. So I had to write about these yesterday. But I get it. The hub sites, it's an interesting change, and I won't go through all the things that you covered because you're exactly right. Those are the reasons that A, we've wanted them for so long, and B, we're so excited about them. I do kind of remind people though that as you start to think about hub sites here, you probably need to kind of think about information architecture again, right? Because it's going to it's a new option, and it needs to be kind of the top of your pyramid that the content works from. So you are going to have to revisit information architecture in some capacity. So it'll be fun to see kind of how that plays out. Does it really just let you snap it in and you fixed it all and it's good? Or are we going to be like, man, information architecture needs to be completely done. Delete my whole tenant and start over. Hopefully that's not the answer, but I want people to be thinking about that as they incorporate hub sites.
Yeah, so you said it's only targeted release then? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you have targeted release, then it's in there. Right now, the way this works is you need to register the master, the hub site itself. You need to register that with SharePoint Online, and you can only do that with PowerShell right now. And so there's a PowerShell Cmdlet register-SPO hub site, and that tells SharePoint Online that this is a hub site. And then once you do that, you can go to the children sites and say, associate me with this hub site. But apparently only if you're in targeted release.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? We keep telling people, you got to learn PowerShell. It's always our thing. And this is another example, register SPO hub site. You're really excited to do it. But if you've never connected to your SharePoint Online environment with PowerShell, it's a new set of muscles to go and learn. So make sure that keeping up with the Joneses here, PowerShell.
Yep. So another thing, speaking of PowerShell, the Azure Active Directory PowerShell Cmdlets got an update here a week or two ago. And there are a couple of different modules for this. This is the new module, the V2 module, that has the Azure AD suffix on all the nouns. But they added a new release, 2.0.1.2. That's kind of boring. But what it adds is some new commandlets for identity providers, some things around identity. So if you haven't gone out there and done that yet, you can do that. And that's all in the PowerShell gallery. So it's install module, Azure AD. This one is the preview. It's the preview branch, or upgrade those. I really am digging how Microsoft is putting everything out in the PowerShell gallery. And so I've got a new machine. It's something we're going to talk about here later. Needed to update some stuff, and it was like 3 lines, and it was great. I love how easy that stuff is to upgrade and install now. Yeah,
install module is a wonderful piece of functionality. Now, in the notes for this release, you use the proper name, right? Azure Active Directory PowerShell for Graph -public preview. Maybe for a second, put you on the spot here, but I always find it weird that it's it's graph, right? That seems off-putting. That makes me think it's a BI type of story. I keep seeing, these connectivities for graph. Do you want to take a second and just explain why PowerShell for graph in the AD space has nothing to do with actual graphs?
I haven't played with it much, but I'm with you. I think the Microsoft Graph, and that's something that probably you and I haven't messed with enough, and then we should, because I think that's going to stick around. But the Graph, for those that haven't played with it yet, is kind of the fabric in the background of Office 365, and it is the thing that you query to get information about things. And it's not just BI. It can be used for BI. It can be used for those kind of things, but it's also a way to find out about users and site collections and all those kind of things. And that is kind of the fabric that's binding everything together. So you're seeing all these different things start showing up. Graph is showing up in all these other places as Microsoft is unifying this vision of Graph in the background. So I think you're right. We probably should talk about that a little bit and explain to people why seeing Graph in the name of something isn't scary and isn't bad. And it is for them. It is whether they think it is or not. That's a good point. We should do that.
Yeah, just find it confusing, right? Because, I mean, for example, I know in PowerApps, like, if you want to write your own identity provider, so you want to be able to use Active Directory groups in your permissions, then you have to use the Microsoft Graph. And people are like, wait, well, Graph is BI. No, right? And I guess maybe the best way to think of it is like skin graph. Like, back to your whole idea, it's a fabric. It's about connecting stuff. So I don't know. I just thought that was a side note for us to kind of remind people that when you see Graph in this context, it's more about connectivity and less about pretty little line charts and stuff.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft tried. So the Graph came out, I don't remember when. It was 5 years ago, maybe at the last SharePoint conference or something. And it came out with Delve. And so I think for most people, they didn't understand that those were separate things. And I think now we understand a little better that Delve was an application that used Graph. And Delve was kind of here's one of the things that you would use the Graph for. But unfortunately, people got those two conflated, and now they think of Graph as Delve, and Delve was this BI thing. But if you think about it, Delve took the documents that you look at and the people you associate with, and again, it looked at that big fabric in the background and made some connections between them. And so I think, it got confusing. But the Graph has been a very powerful thing. And yeah, we should spend some time on that sometime. Yeah,
all right, fair enough. What's next?
So another great Azure AD topic, and this came up somewhere. I can't remember where I saw this in the last week, but it bore repeating. I don't remember. But it is a Microsoft document, docs.microsoft.com, of the supported and unsupported topologies for Azure AD Connect. So if you haven't played with Azure AD Connect, it is the way that you sync your on-prem Windows Active Directory with Azure Active Directory. And syncing Windows Active Directory with Azure Active Directory is how you get all of your existing users into Office 365 and start doing all the fun things, multi-factor auth and all these things. Azure AD Connect, one of my favorite pieces of software. I think we're talking about it. Can't remember if we're talking about it at SharePoint Conference North America. I submitted some stuff for SP TechCon on it. Yeah. But it is just, it is one of the things that is the next generation of IT Pro tools. Great tool, big fan. But I love this document because of two things. Number one, it lays out what you can and cannot do, because once you think about it, there's just a bunch of different combinations of things that you can do. So I like that about it. Number two, I like that it does it all in pictures. So you can scroll through this document and it will show you pictures, and you're like, yeah, that triangle's AD, the arrows, that's the sync, the cloud, that's the I get it, okay? And then the things that don't work have that, and then have a big red X through them. So I can have my 7-year-old look through here, and she could probably tell me what works and what doesn't.
And say, did you print them out and get your crayons and mark them up? Write your names and that stuff.
I like it. So this is just a good thing, and it's all these weird little scenarios that people haven't thought about. Like, if I've got a forest, how do I sync that? If I've got 2 different domains, can I sync them to the same Azure AD domain, or what if I've got a Windows AD domain? I need to sync it to 2 different Azure AD domains. All of those scenarios are all in things that you and I haven't thought about, but really come up, and it's all great stuff. So I like that. The link will be in the show notes down below, or you can go to toddclint.com/podcast382 and it'll be in there. But just a good one to have in your bookmarks when you're trying to figure out if I can do this with Azure AD Connect or not.
Or if your kids are bored on spring break like mine are, and be like, here kids, color the pictures of the pretty Active Directory servers.
There you go. There you go. And excuse me, segueing one more time, talking about PowerShell. I've been playing a bunch with PowerShell Core, or PowerShell Core 6, I guess is its full name, here in the last week or so, and I'm kind of liking it. It's got some neat things to it. I've been enjoying that, and so I kind of throwing that out for the podcast audience. Shane's got a bunch of PowerShell videos up on his site. Is that something you guys would be interested in, for me to just kind of show you me muddling around in PowerShell Core? What's different and scary? What's exactly the same and not scary at all? If that's something you guys are interested in, give us a shout.
Yeah, and I would definitely vote for it. I think, it's stuff I want to learn, but I just haven't had the time to be like, all right, I'm going to put this different version of PowerShell on and relearn it all from the beginning.
What's it going to break? What's the liability?
Yeah. What works? What doesn't? Because P&P doesn't work still, I believe. What pieces are there? The things like get help. Is get help still there? I mean, these are the type of questions I really have. So, and Chewy's even got some stuff.
Chewy's super excited. Well, if Chewy once said I can't turn Chewy down. So Mark Chrisman in the chat room, he's saying yes, he wants the video. So I'll think about that. I'll start mapping some stuff out and see what I can do. Speaking of PowerShell, I don't remember where this came up either, but I have a tab open in one of my Chrome browsers that is IIS Cmdlets for Windows PowerShell. Now, this is something as on-prem admins and things like that, wanting to know how to use PowerShell with IIS is important, because there's these little things. And I guess one of your comments I did, or one of your videos had a comment, somebody was asking specifically how to do these things. And that might be why I had that tab up. So again, in the show notes. Now, the funny thing about this particular link that I put in the show notes is that it's for Windows Server 2008 R2. And the article itself is damn near 10 years old. But the PowerShell Cmdlets are still there. And I haven't looked recently, but the IIS PowerShell Cmdlets were just a little off skew from what I was expecting from my, learning how to use PowerShell from SharePoint. So it's good to kind of see through that and see what objects you can play with, and there's some stuff you can do there.
It's right. It's the same as like SharePoint, right? I get STS-ADM, I can do it all there. Why would I ever want to jump into PowerShell? Fast forward. Was that almost 10 years now? Now we know why we want to do it with PowerShell. So same type of deal. I think backing up, and the sooner you learn IIS, PowerShell, it'll be one more thing, one more notch in your tool belt that'll make your life a little easier, a little better. So I like it.
Yep.
Let's jump down. Let's talk about PowerApps for a few minutes, because we know what I love. I've got a crush on PowerApps.
You do?
So PowerApps, and I don't have notes on here for this, but there was like this big spring update that goes across PowerApps, Flow, Dynamics, that whole kind of bundle. While we think of them as separate, distinct pieces, at least I know I do, Microsoft understands and thinks of them as an ecosystem that they're just, he'll let us each kind of grab our silos, and they'll bring us all together one day, and we'll be like, oh man, I use Dynamics now. I didn't even realize it. So anyway, there was a big spring bundle of functionality added across all three of those. A lot of it was for making it so you could build better Power Apps with the CDS, the Common Data Services, which is kind of their proprietary database engine. It's not a database engine though, because you can do entities and relationships. It's kind of like a version of Salesforce almost, a data model that you can just plug into. Anyway. Not important, lots of big updates. The biggest one that I wanted to talk about for a second was that they added a bunch of new Power Apps error handling. And as part of that, they also added the ability to finally write nulls. So, we know in SQL that there's a difference between a null value and, two quotes side by side.
An empty value or a white space value. Yes, they're all three handled very differently.
Right. And so up until now, we could not do null values out of Power Apps. We couldn't write back a null value or even really understand what they were coming in. So they added that functionality. That's a new piece. So that's a pretty exciting change. And it's also interesting in there, they talk about the fact that it's another one of those experimental features. So the Power Apps team has really embraced this whole, new Microsoft style of we just try stuff. They are not afraid to be like, yep, we're going to put these things out here. If they work, we'll keep them. If they don't, well, we'll do something different. And they're just upfront about it. It's no, so I've been really excited about that. And this is just another example of them we're going to try it. It's probably broken right now, but kick it.
Yeah, that one has come up with me a few times in PowerShell as I've been writing functions that take input and read external things and all that. The difference between white space, null, empty space, because they all figure in differently and they all, yeah, it's a thing.
Well, it absolutely is. Yeah, that's one of the challenges in PowerApps we have with like drop downs and stuff. There's no way to have the drop down set to no value, like to just not be set, right? It's always got to have one of the values out of the list of data. So we have to, we got our color choices, red, blue, and green. And then the top choice in the list is a dash or a space or something ridiculous like that, because there was no concept of, there's just nothing here. So,
yeah.
Looking forward to that. That's good stuff. I wrote an article for Petri. It just talks about connecting your on-prem data to Office 365. Hopefully you guys are embracing this, because everyone's got Office 365 at this point. And the sooner you realize that hybrid doesn't have to mean that, yes, we use one username and password in both environments, but other than that, we have on-prem SharePoint, we have cloud SharePoint. With the data, the on-premises data connection gateway, we're able to explore, connect the two locations and kind of share data between the two. So you can have a Microsoft Flow, right, that writes data both to a SharePoint Online list and a SharePoint On-Prem list, and all those types of crazy things. And so, I don't know, the data connection stuff, it's been very interesting. I covered this in the article. It's a little tough, though, to get your hands around, because while it's one piece of software that works across like 7 different Microsoft products now, that one piece of software doesn't have its own home. It's just referenced by all 7 of the different products. So I don't know, I find that a little off-putting, right? Because I want to go and just read about all the things it can do, but I can't. I have to go look at Azure Logic Apps and see what it does there. And I have to go to Power BI and see what it does there. And then there was it added some new functionality this week. I was like, I didn't even know that was a product. And so I'm having a hard time keeping up with that one. Welcome to Office 365, right?
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think this is a very important recipe for Office 365 being successful, and for a lot of places who don't know what they want to do because they have certain things that have to stay on-prem because of regulations or because of software requirements or whatever. And so that anchors them to on-prem, and they think it means they can't move to Office 365. Things like this are a huge bridge in that gap, because now you can keep this data on-prem for as long as you're comfortable, but yet use all the great tools that are out in the cloud. And I think Microsoft is incredibly smart for going down this route, because I think before they were very much trying to make a schism between the two so that you would jump over to the cloud. And I think they've realized that this is a better approach. So I'm glad about that.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to me that this one tool is also available across all 7, right? So I can install one data gateway server, and then I can use that same data gateway server with Power BI, PowerApps, Azure Logic Apps, all these different pieces of software. And that is just not the Microsoft we've known in the past, right? We would have had 7 different versions of this same thing running side by side to facilitate this.
And we've talked about this a number of times, that old graphic from 10 or 15 years ago about how each company works internally. Google and Amazon and Microsoft was the one where every business unit had guns pointed at all the other business units. That's exactly what I would have expected too, and that just doesn't represent Microsoft anymore, and I think we're all better off for it.
Yeah. The last thing on that data gateway, also, it doesn't require any firewall changes. So the data gateway you install on premises, it calls out to the Azure Service Bus to check to see if it has work. So as long as it can get to the internet, everything works, which is pretty awesome also.
Folks, I hope you understand and appreciate the mental steps that Shane just had to go through when he said on-prem is like the word just kept getting bigger in his head as he was trying to pronounce it. He couldn't stop adding syllables.
Yeah, see, if we ever do that private show, they could hear us argue about why on-premise with no S is correct, but not today.
Well, it's not. You're completely wrong. But I will say I will compromise with you that on-prem. When you say on-prem, you can say on-prem because you're shortening on-premise, even though you're wrong. But when I hear on-prem, I can assume that you're saying it's short for on-premises, and then we're both happy.
Yep. The internet has voted, though. The internet agrees with me. So Moving on before we get lost.
The internet also wanted Bodie McBoatface, so don't.
The internet is never wrong. I don't know what else to tell you. Keeping up with PowerApps here. Also, I put out a video this week on using or making a shopping cart. Just a fun little video because it shows you how to connect a bunch of pieces, and kind of work through creating galleries and forms to then put stuff in a collection, and then editing your collection to then push that data back to SharePoint. So I realize no one's going to set up, Amazon internal.com and have an online bookstore with their PowerApps. But I feel like the shopping cart system teaches you some stuff you need to know. And I've also had some customers who they did want a shopping cart functionality. So they were using the shopping cart to show all the marketing assets they had. So a sales guy would log in, he'd go through the shopping cart, mark the assets he wanted, and then it would send an email off to marketing, who would then build him a customer presentation based on the assets that he had checked. So that's the shopping cart, right? It's just, there was no purchase, there's no give your credit card at the end, but it was a shopping cart. So I don't know, I kind of liked it.
Yeah, and I love stories like that because I love the idea that somebody has a problem, and instead of going to a developer and opening up Visual Studio and new project and coding, they're like, what tools do we already have? How can I think of things just a little bit? This is just a shopping cart, and so that's all there. I love those kind of stories. Yeah.
Well, I had a fight with a customer yesterday. I almost got a little. I felt bad, right? But he's like, his customers, right, his internal users, they wanted the app to work this very, very specific way. And I'm like, I agree. I understand that they said that to you, but they're wrong. They don't want that. They are not going to use the data in that fashion. They say they are, but at the end of the day,
and they think they are.
Yeah. Right. I was like, if you give them this, it does everything they want without all the clutter. And so we got to a place that worked, but yeah, it's the same thing, right? Sometimes, especially when you're the go-between, right, you have a hard time thinking about what does the end user really want more than what are the exact words that came out of their mouth.
Yeah. And being a human myself, there are numerous times when I've known exactly what I wanted without a shadow of a doubt, and then got exactly what I wanted and realized that wasn't what I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I mean and we've been on both ends of that. So yeah, Yep. All right.
One more there. Also did a video on the PowerApps filter function. It's about as unsexy as you can get, but the filter function is used in probably every single app I've ever made in PowerApps. So understanding how that works is probably a helpful thing. So
I can't think of anybody more prepared and qualified to do something on a topic that's unsexy than you. So it's a good fit.
Thank you. Which one of the other two do you want to talk about next?
I like the next one probably. That was your idea.
Yeah. So Todd and I, as you know, we listen to some podcasts here and there. We make a podcast. We listen to some, not the ones that we make. I can promise you that.
Never.
But so one of the ones that I've been really enjoying lately is it's called the Indicator, and so it's the Planet Money team on NPR. They have this daily podcast that's usually focused around one specific number, and it's from the news, and they kind of take it and put it in context. And it's usually about a 7 to 9 minute episode, so it works really well, right? My drive to Chick-fil-A is about 7 to 9 minutes, so I can get a whole episode in between here and Chick-fil-A. But they do just a great job of making you think about things. And a lot of times, oil rig counts was one last week. Sometimes there's things like I could care less about the oil rig count. But the one from Monday this week was dollars for data. And so this was one that really just, as soon as while I was listening to it, I sent Todd a message like, you need to go watch this or listen to this episode because I want to talk about it. Because this is one of those topics we have talked about a lot. And Todd does a better job of explaining it even than the show did for me, right? It's this whole idea that if you're not paying for a service, you're not the customer, right? You're Todd uses that to talk about Facebook or Instagram or any of those type of things. And these guys, they went deep on it for 9 minutes. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good listen, and I think they took it a step further. So the phrase that I have stolen about that, I didn't come up with it, was that if you're not paying for a service, you're not the customer, you're the product. So Facebook and Google and all those things. But they took it a step further and they said, if you're not paying for a service, you're not the customer, you're not even the product, you're a worker. You're giving them free labor. And so there's kind of two parts to this podcast. They kind of explain that idea, and then they explain why that's bad. I agreed with the premise of what they were saying. I disagreed with the second part and the guy they were interviewing saying that it was bad. And the example that they gave was Stacy, I think, one of the NPR folks was talking about how that week, and it was a completely contrived situation, but she was doing a thing and she went and got a restaurant review at Yelp, and she did a bunch of these things and talking about all these free services that she used that made her weekend that much better. And so she's like, all this is good. And then this other guy's like, no, it's all bad, because when you were doing all that, you were giving all of these services free information about what was open and where you were, and they were using that to create a service to sell advertising. So you were essentially giving them free labor, and that's bad. And I disagree on that's bad part, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, right? And a little more work there. I realized that Glenn Weil, or whatever his name was, Weyl. So he's got a book coming out in May called Radical Markets. So I'm guessing he was purposely kind of, poking the bear here to get you to read his book, which is going to work because I'm probably going to buy his book when it comes out and read it. But, it was an interesting one because he's like, your value of the free service you got was less than the value of what they sold your data for. So he wants us to switch to this model where, because you're the worker, that you actually get paid, right? So the more you post on Facebook at the end of the month, end of the year, whatever, Facebook's like, oh, you had 17,000 likes, you get a $400 check at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that was his thought, and he kind of tried to use it to the guise of, as the economy has changed, this whole, we went to a services model. Now we're going to become a producer by doing pictures on Instagram of my dog whining while I'm doing a podcast. And I don't know. I liked where he went with it. I mean, you sound like you were pretty strongly against kind of his ideas. This evil Facebook is going to get all the money because we're doing all the work for them.
Well, exactly at that, yeah. So his point, before he talked about the thing that Shane talked about, the cashback thing at the end, he was talking about market cap size and revenue and all that, and he was saying, I forget what the old economy business he talked about was. Walmart, yeah. He's like, Walmart has 1 million customers. They bring in X revenue. That revenue gets split out amongst the workers, which is an incredibly ignorant and simplified way of describing that. But he's like, so Facebook has a much bigger market cap, but they have like 20,000 employees, and all of that money, instead of going to 1 million workers, is all going to the people at the top, and that's bad. Facebook is bad. The people that run Facebook are bad because they're taking all this money. What they should be doing is they should be paying you people out there that are using Facebook. They should be giving that money back to you because they're bad. And as soon as he went down that road, I tuned him out. So when he circled back to the things that Stacy were doing had value to the company, that made it a little more. I'm more about earning what you get than having somebody give it to you because they've got it and you deserve it. And so it kind of circled back a little bit toward the end. But I guess the other thing is, as one of these reluctant workers that uses a bunch of these services, I don't feel like I'm getting screwed. I feel like I'm getting as much value out of it. And I also feel like, unlike a job and unlike work, which he describes it as, I can stop anytime without negative consequences. I can quit posting pictures of restaurants when I go there, and I can still keep using the service, or I can choose not to use the service at all. And I think that was part. But again, he's out there. He's poking the bear because he wants to sell books, and yeah. But it was an interesting discussion.
It was, and I did like, because one of the points they did not spend more than like 3 seconds on was the whole idea that maybe if we did pay for some of these services like Google Maps or things like that, our expectations would go up, because so in Stacy's completely fake story, the subway stop that she needed to go to was closed. So she's like, Google Maps should have known this, but it's free. So what do I do? But if she was paying $10 a month for that, she would have been like, bad word in a Twitter review. Why didn't you know my stop was closed? And there'd be some type of incentive. And then you might argue then at that point that maybe if you reported the station closed, maybe Google Maps should give you $5 to, do that type of stuff, which would then incent people to get more updates out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like that point because his point was that if we were paying for the service like Google Maps and the train stop thing came up, we could vote with our dollars and we could use some other mapping software instead of Google Maps, and that would give a competitor leverage to come in and offer a better product. I get that. But I guess I would say we already have that option because I can just quit using Google Maps. I mean, I have that option without the money thing coming in. The other thing is, I think as economists, and I don't know what this guy's background is, I forget, but they suffer from this thing where they think everybody makes rational decisions. Yes. And and that is not the case in a bunch of these things. But what I hated about that was him saying all these free services, and there's a list of them. I mean, the list of free services you and I use every day is probably 20. I mean, just for all kinds of stuff, Facebook, Google Maps, whatever. Easily. For him saying, this deal you've got worked out where you give them a picture every once in a while and they give you all this functionality for free, I think they should start charging you for that. And I'm like, oh, God, no, that is the last thing that Facebook needs is some economist and a bunch of people saying, you should start charging for Facebook. And Zuckerberg going, I think he's right. I think we should start charging for Facebook. I don't want to go down that road.
So I had a different thought completely as I was driving there because, I don't know, I think about silly things. But maybe it's the opposite. Is the way that you make a Facebook competitor at this point, could you do a business model? If this guy's right, which, is to be seen, could you have a business model? Could we make Shane and Todd book, and on Shane and Todd book, we pay you, right? We do. Every year we add up, we sold your data. Your data to us was worth $10,000. Your data to us was worth $1,000. We're going to give you 50% of that back. And so you get, we know how much your data is worth. We give you half of it back every year. Is that the model? Is that how you could go and take on Facebook in this world where you could not ever dream of making a new Facebook app?
So I disagree with that last part. Everybody who's ever been unbeatable has been beaten. Everybody who's ever been on top of any industry has fallen. Yep. But I think in the wake of all the Facebook stuff with the Cambridge Analytica, maybe you're right. Maybe there's some free premium option inside of Facebook or some brand new product where they say, we're going to give you all the functionality of Facebook, but we're not going to do all the stuff you think is skeevy, where we comb your stuff and sell it to people. And we're not going to do any of that. You're going to give us $5 a month, and we're not going to make any more money off of you from any other way. I think some people would jump at that.
But would people go the other way? Would people move platforms altogether to my platform where I pay you? I tell you, hey, I sold your data to these people. I sold your record for $10. You get $5 of it.
Some people would. And it's funny, my mom and I had this conversation the other night about different things and about privacy and all this. And obviously she's a generation older than me, but she has different expectations on privacy. And so I was like, yeah, I can't remember what the service was or what it was. I'm like, yeah, they know that I did the thing and I don't care because I'm getting this thing in return. She's like, I can't believe you're telling people this thing. But so there's different, different audiences out there for it. Shane's dog is acting up. So, but yeah, go out there. And you also find that a lot of the stuff that Shane and I listen to, again, like he said earlier, is economics stuff. So I listen to the Freakonomics podcast, Planet Money, Slate Money, The Indicator, all of those. And so you'll find a lot of our information comes from there.
Yeah, Freakonomics is definitely my favorite these days. So, especially if you guys are trying to get into stuff oh my God, I'm going to kill my dog. They just did a series with CEOs, and that series I think is a great one to get people into it if you're into this space. I'll mute.
Yep. So let's take this opportunity to go to the community corner, talk about some community events as we wrap this up. The next big event is SharePoint Saturday Vancouver. That is April 14th. And their URL, if you want to find out about that, you're not muted anymore, Shane, is sbsevents.org, and check that out. And then we've got Cloud Friday Nashville and SharePoint Saturday Nashville, May 4th and 5th, respectively. The links for all those will be in the show notes below. Not to be outdone by its sister city, Canadian city, Vancouver, Montreal is having a SharePoint Saturday type event June 2nd, and they have a call for speakers that is open until April 1st, which for those of you listening to the recording was probably about 6 weeks ago. That's about how long it takes me to produce these things. So they've got their stuff out on Sessionize. You can submit some papers for that. And then finally, way out, lots of planning, no excuse not to go. SharePoint Saturday, Charlotte is August 11th down in Charlotte, so you can go to that one as well. And not to be forgotten, I didn't forget these folks, but they go into a special part here in promotion. SharePoint Saturday Omaha is a week from this Saturday. Holy cow. And so you can go to spsomaha.org and sign up for that. April 7th in beautiful sunny Omaha, Nebraska. This one is near and dear to my heart, probably the nearest SharePoint Saturday event to me ever. And I am doing the keynote for that event. They've been very gracious in allowing me to do the keynote. I assume that means the real people they wanted to do the keynote turned them down. And that's funny because there was another event this year where somebody asked me if I'd be interested in doing the keynote. And I'm like, yeah, I would do that. And then they got back to me a couple weeks later and like, yeah, we asked a couple of people and somebody better said yes. So we are asking you to do the keynote.
I love those people.
Yeah, that's and I completely get it. My feelings aren't hurt. I'm not mad or anything. But Omaha, they stuck with it. They're going to see this mess through. So I'm going to be there, and then I think I'm doing a session on PowerShell and Office 365. So April 7th, SPS Omaha. If you're going to be at SPS Omaha, for goodness sakes, come find me. Say hello. Tell us you're a friend of the podcast. All that. Then May 21st through the 23rd. I don't know where you're going to be. I know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada at the SharePoint Conference North America, or as known to its friends, SPC NA. You can go to SharePointConferenceNA.com, sign up for that. That is, again, May 21st through the 23rd at the MGM Grand. Super excited about that. Several days of great sessions, and Microsoft is hitting this thing with full force. Every Microsoft Office 365 person you've ever wanted to talk to is going to be there doing sessions, hanging out. It's going to be like the SharePoint conference of old. And go there. You can go out to SharePointConferenceNA.com and sign up for it. Use the promo code Clint. And Shane would go in and tell you to use his code instead, but he can't because he's got to stay muted because his dog is whining. So for the first time ever, I love his dog for making noise.
Young, Young.
I'll take care of that in post. And then also Shane and I are doing a day-long session on Thursday, a SharePoint Administrator Boot Camp. And this is going to be what the SharePoint administrator needs to know in the year 2018. It's going to cover on-prem with all the latest things that get announced at the SharePoint conference. It's going to be hybrid. It's going to be Office 365. It's going to be PowerShell. It's going to be all the things that we think you need to know to be a successful SharePoint administrator today. So you can still sign up for that one as well. And then one of our perennial favorites, SPTechCon. SPTechCon's coming back to Boston. It is August 26th through the 29th in Boston. And so Shane and I both plan on being there. The call for speakers is closed, but there's some amazing sessions that have been submitted for that. So if you're out in the Northeast and want to come hang out with Shane and I, August 26th at SPTechCon.
I can't wait. It's a busy year of awesome events. And you know, the list came out, and once again, can't give numbers, but we're in top 3 for most popular post-cons at SharePoint conference.
I think we're top 4. I looked at it myself. I think there's one. But what we'll another thing to talk about for the SharePoint Conference North America, we will be recording the podcast live there. I don't remember what the time is, but we will be doing the podcast live from the SharePoint Conference, and then we'll probably also do some kind of other get together for the podcast folks. So if you're going to be at SharePoint Conference, reach out to us. We'll get you in the mix and talk about those things, but we would love to see you there.
I'm very excited. I'm also very excited for spring break to be over. I apologize for all the chewiness today, but we have children in the house because it is spring break. Oh, come over and whine one more time, dog. Back to next week. The kids will be in school. My sanity will be here. Chewy will be quiet. So sorry, guys.
All right, everybody. Well, if Chewy has said all he needs to say, we can probably wrap this podcast up. So thanks, everybody. We will see you next week with or without Chewy. And if you've got anything you'd like to hear us talk about, hit us up at Todd Clint or at Shane's Cows on Twitter, Todd at ToddClint.com or Shane.Young at BoldZebras.com. And let us know. We take topic suggestions all the time, and we would love to hear from you. See you guys next week.